Good morning, afternoon, and night, everyone around the world in Web3. This is your co-host Sus, and I have with me today our host Billy, as well the one and only Kenny, the founder actually, not the co-founder, yes, the founder of Ample Stream and nominee for the NDC election House of Merit. Kenny, how you doing? We're supposed to have this one few days ago, but we have to reschedule it. So I'm excited for this.
For sure,
Can
for
you give
sure.
us an introduction about yourself, please?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, yeah, thank you both for having me and being flexible. You know how it goes. Like founders are already running
Yeah.
all over the place, chasing. Yeah, just give you a quick background. I'll just give you a quick background about I guess myself, really quick, and then why I'm even doing what I'm doing with my startup. And then we can get into like any kind of NDC stuff later. So I don't answer for too long. I know how that goes.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Uh,
All good.
You have the mic. Take your
cool.
time.
Yeah, so basically, I started out I have a whole background in production. I started, I worked at National Geographic, Discovery Channel, History, Travel, MTV, Viacom, like the whole thing. I had a whole production company for years, and then when I kind of started learning about blockchain in 2019, I started thinking how we could kind of apply, a lot of these concepts of tokenization, which also we can get into later, but like how I even got there, because that's a pretty fun story. But once I started realizing that you could essentially create a whole infrastructure um, that around this engagement layer that was immutable and couldn't be manipulated and was public, I kind of got excited about the possibilities of cleaning up like a lot of the like ownership, payments, credits, like basically all the issues that the media and entertainment has had for so long. Now there's a substrate that you can essentially build a DApp on, that really fixes and addresses a lot of those problems. So, now you come into the adoption thing and stuff like that. So that's essentially what we're doing. We're building Ample, which is a launch, basically think of like a launch pad streaming and marketplace kind of like all mashed into one, and just really easy to use. It'll like content creators will be able to distribute to like multiple marketplaces and multiple streaming platforms. We handle all the payment settlements, we handle all the IP ownership and the tokenization of that IP. And basically like we want to even create it so like you don't even need a wallet. So that's a pretty short like kind of background and short blurb about what we're doing. But um, yeah, I'll stop there and let things keep moving.
No, that was great. I love it, and thanks for coming on. And I kind of wanted to ask you about what you did before coming to New York, before coming and doing your startup and doing whatever it is that you're doing. Tell us more about like what you're doing, producing and stuff like that. You said you work professionally doing with Nat Geo and all that good stuff. Tell us about like what you did. Like I'm curious and interested in what you used to do. Like what was a normal day of Kenny while you're doing your producing?
Well, yeah, no. So like, I mean, at first I really really started kind of like my first. It's interesting because I got a degree in economics and then first, and then then I started because I played music. I went to audio school and learned like audio engineering for like 6 months and got like a engineering certificate or whatever. Then I started doing audio. Then the production company I was doing audio for, they were like, "You want to try video?" Tried video. Then I had a buddy whose brother had like this whole production company, and they were working for Discovery and History and like all these big networks. And then once people knew that I could kind of do like both, I just started working like around the clock. So an average day would be 2 to 3 shifts, like one shift like doing all the like video side, and then the other shift like doing like a lot of the audio stuff. And then project managers and like coordinators and stuff just got super stoked about this one human that they could just like throw everything at. And so then, but then I had to kind of make a decision, and I started editing a lot. And then I got my job at National Geographic as a full time editor, and that's kind of really what I did for a couple years. And then I don't know, sitting behind an edit desk for like 10 to 12 hours a day got a little taxing. It's just super tough to do that, especially I was doing it like 2 shifts. So I was just like chopping like so many shows, like some, and like this is like before anyone even cared about IMDb, which is hilarious because now everybody tracks everything. And so like I only have like 5 things on IMDb, but I did so many. Um, but yeah, then I got into like the producer role and kind of like started running things a little bit more. Did a lot of shooting and like then started my own production company. So, and then that's when I was just like running teams and kind of just like full productions and stuff. So it was a long road with a lot of progression, but basically I just like worked super hard and worked all the time, and that's kind of how I had got like credits, and like the amount of credits and work that I have been able to accomplish was just because I just worked so much. Like I just constantly put in like double, sometimes triple shifts, and like slept in studios and stuff, you know. So that's just the way it goes. So that's basically like my background, like on the production side.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can understand how taxing that would be on you, and I still find myself sometimes falling asleep right here at my desk.
Right.
I'm just like, well, I'm just gonna lay back a little bit and close my eyes and rest because my eyes are hurting from staring at the blue screen all day, and I wake up an hour later like, oh damn it, I didn't finish what I
Yeah.
was doing, and I fell asleep on my chair. Oh, I gotta go to bed. So yeah, I can see that happening a
Yeah,
lot.
I'm a little more aware of that process now. I basically set a timer on my phone, like for every hour to get up and like move for 10 to 15 minutes, go
Yeah,
outside, that kind of stuff.
yeah, you got a schedule going on. You kind of know what's going on around you and stuff.
For sure.
So before we get into anything deep, NDC or more about Ample, I kind of want to ask, what do you do for fun? Like, I want to know a little bit more about Kenny. What is a okay? You don't have to work. I know you're super busy, but you have
Sure.
the day off today. What are you gonna go do?
Um, my top choice would be to go snowboarding. That's like my love. That's the thing that I like more than anything. Probably, arguably, like that's kind of what I think I like more than anything. I mean, aside from my daughter, obviously, but like anything more than the whole world, I think that's what I love. There's just something about like, you know, because I do a lot of like backcountry and kind of like, you know, hitting trees and all that kind of stuff, and like it's like you have to really focus for like you have to focus so hard, and it's such a physically taxing and like mentally taxing thing that you do, but it's also so relaxing because you kind of have to put everything out of your mind, you know what I mean? And I feel like when I do that, it gives me a lot of peace. So it's weird because you're like super focused and like, all right, I don't want to hit a tree doing 50 miles an hour or whatever I'm doing, you know what I mean? And like you got to be careful, like, because if you eat it out there and you're not with anybody, or you don't have your Abby beacons or whatever, like, right, like that's on you. um but like you just get to kind of like, there's so much peace because your mind chatter and all the world just goes away, and then, you know, like you're in nature. So like for me, that's like that's what's ideal. Other than that, it's probably something outside, um or like, you know, playing music or something like that.
Ooh, music. What do you like to play? You shouldn't have brought that up because we're gonna talk about music now. Because I love music. Like I always wear like band tees and stuff. All my tattoos are band stuff.
Sick.
And I picked up a guitar when I was about 16. I want to say my
Sick.
brother had a bass. He brought a PA. My friends, I helped them buy a drum set, and we played punk rock in the garage and piss off the neighbors almost
Of
every night.
course.
So what did you play? Are you like a studio guy, or you played in a band?
So
What did you
so
do?
I know all about that process of pissing your neighbors off playing music. I did that. Yeah, no, so yeah, I started playing drums in high school. I didn't play as much in high school just because like I was also like heavy in sports at the time. But like in college, I took like a history of jazz class or something like that, and yeah, that's when I like. So then we had to do some like performance, and I was like, um, I'm not really as good as like half these people, right? And so I was kind of like, you know, I love this, and I I was like, all right, well, let me take this more serious. So I actually started getting like jazz lessons and like learning. Like I took like 3 to 4 years of like really serious lessons and just started playing for like 5 to 6 hours a day. And then I felt like with everything I learned, like all the different styles that I learned from like linear funk to like, you know, different kinds of like progressive jazz and just all the different jazz drummers, I could essentially apply that to like any style of music, because like I didn't play jazz, and like I'm not a jazz drummer. Like I'm not a like I would never tell anyone I play jazz or I'm a jazz drummer. But I studied it, and I felt like you could apply the the teachings and the lessons to like anything from like I played everything from like super heavy rock, like almost like screamo style, to like hip hop, funk, blues, rock. Like I just like some reggae stuff. Like yeah, so I kind of never really had like this idea of like what music should be. I just felt like, oh, it's cool. Like you just play whatever you want to play with a bunch of other people, and you vibe up on whatever style you're playing, and you bring your own unique expression to that mix. So yeah, music I'm all in. Like I mean, I used to like I studied everything, man. Like I've never, like perfect examples like, you know, I would never play like heavy metal like or I don't even know what you would technically call like Slipknot or like, Dillinger Escape Plan or anything like that, right? Like that's not me per se, but like I still listened to it and studied it. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
anyways, yeah, but music I could
I,
go on forever, man. Love it.
and no, love it, love it, love it. No, same thing. I'll sit there when I was. I think my little brother got a bass guitar, and I wanted a guitar. I was asking for a guitar before he asked for the bass. So he said, and dude, we had like band posters and then all our ticket stubs from
Yep.
Ticketmaster. We post up on our wall and stuff, and we try to make our wall like a newspaper, and we would just try to use the flyers that we got from the shows and just cover our wall up and stuff like that.
So
And then when we got old enough, the beer boxes that we were drinking and stuff.
oh, for sure. Did you guys play?
Oh, eventually, yeah. So he
Yeah,
got this bass, and he didn't
same.
play it as much as I wanted to play. He would play it every once in a while. We were young. We were, probably freshmen in high school. He was
Right.
probably in middle school. I don't remember exactly when, but I remember I was around a freshman in high school, and I wanted to play a guitar. I don't know why I wanted to play guitar, and maybe because it kind of might be genetic. Like my grandfather used to play flamenco. Like
Oh,
he's
sick.
Mexican, so he would play like with his fingers. Like what's
Yeah,
that one guy? I forgot his name. The infomercials at 2 a.m. But that one Spanish guitar flamenco. He would play
for
like
sure.
that, and then my dad played like Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that. He had a bass, and his friend played guitar. So he would say, "Hey, Bill, play this." And they would play Jimi Hendrix songs and like
For
Boston
sure.
and like classic rock, or at the time it wasn't classic rock, but
Yeah, at the
like
time,
stuff
right?
like that.
I don't even know what it's called now.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was just in me to want it and to want to play guitar, and I didn't know he played. I didn't know my grandfather played. I didn't know this until later on, until I was sitting there, and I probably gave my dad hell, playing in my room. Like you said, you were playing like 4 or 5 hours a day. I would probably some days play for 4 or 5 hours, 2, 3 hours, and I want I want to feel the music. I want it to be loud.
Yeah,
When I go to a show, you come home and you're like, what? You
yeah,
can't hear anything because you're just right in front of the speakers and you're deaf for a day or
right.
two. And so I would want to play it loud. Even the neighbors would call the cops and be like, "Hey, turn that down. It's 1 a.m. What are you doing?" I'm just like, I'm just playing guitar, and it's not like I'm partying or anything. But anyways, yeah. So
No, I mean, it's a thing, man. I mean, yeah, like I played shows all around like Baltimore, and like, yeah, it's totally like, because a couple like, and I think it's very similar to like the feeling I was describing like with snowboarding. It's like
right,
there are times where you just like have this like actual connection, and like you're just in it, and you just feel like there's nothing else going on, and you're just like completely in this zone, with like a couple different people. And even though like afterwards things may or may not be as copacetic, it doesn't really, like, in that moment you're just like so focused. So it's yeah, it's definitely a really great feeling to kind of experience. I'm like really stoked that I even like got to experience that. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I started playing a whole lot. He saw that, and I would teach him. And then my friend, we helped him buy a drum set. It was like a shitty $300 drum set,
Of
and
course.
but we didn't care. We were having fun. And
Of
then the
course.
neighbors would come by and hang out, and yeah, we started playing together. We started a band, and it was fun. And kind of was short lived. It was only for like 2 3 years, but it was fun. But I can see where you say you love music. A lot of people don't play. It's a lot of people say, oh, I want to learn piano, I want to learn guitar, but go buy one. Go buy a little
Yeah.
shitty one from the music store, and start
Yep.
playing. Like it's do it. You don't have to
I
Not
pay.
mean,
easy, man. It's not easy. I
it's
bought a
not.
guitar. I bought a guitar because I really want to buy a actually I got my mother got me one, and she got me like a pretty good guitar for like people who actually play guitar a lot, because I really wanted it so bad. And then I tried to learn. I went to YouTube, I asked friends, I really try to learn it. I couldn't. It's really not easy. But speaking of songs, I do like to listen to like chill, relaxing songs. Sometimes I listen to country songs. To be honest, I
Right.
like it. Hip hop is my thing. Rap as well. But yeah, my brother was into jazz, and my father as well. They really like jazz a lot. I used to watch them, talking about jazz songs and stuff like this. But speaking of music, man, you can't beat old songs. I like to listen to like 60s, 70s song, 80s songs. These songs are
Right.
great, man. And
You,
nowadays people like just mumble and just put couple words together and just, auto-tune and stuff. But back in the days, songs was like very meaningful. It really hits you.
well, yeah, and I think the right. I think if you look at like let's just say like each decade of music, because it does seem like there's almost a shift like by the decade. Like if you like really go back far enough, but it seems like it's just there's always just an iteration, right? Like even when you look at a lot of like the classic rock time period, well, if you look at who they studied, I mean, they were coming from a lot of classical and jazz backgrounds and things like that. So they infused that into the music, but then they were like, oh, there's these screaming loud amps now. So let's throw that into the mix. You know what I mean? And one of the cool things I've seen or have appreciated, because I started actually learning the piano a couple years ago, and that was awesome. Like I got a like teacher and it was amazing. But so now I can actually like write my own stuff. But I think one of the things that I've always loved were synths, and I was always like, man, like I don't feel like people use them enough. And then it was just like this wave of like, because EDM started to come over here, and I think you're seeing like almost like a resurgence of like the synths a lot, because like in the 80s there was a lot of the synths, but I never really feel like they got the justice or did it like you know what I mean? It was like kind of cheesy and like, I mean, which is still cool, but like now there's just so many synths in a lot of different music, and I just like love like the layers that are being used. So I just feel like everything just evolves and kind of like, and then it's like culturally like where are people at that are making, like I think like, it sounds like Billy when we came up, like, right, it was very like anti-establishment. Like there was just so much like anti-establishment, like, yeah, like a lot of like, I mean, I had like NWA and Public Enemy. Like I was listening to that while I was still listening to like Weezer, you know what I mean? Or like Rage, and then like Nirvana, like, and all these like, you know what I mean? Like, so you just grew up with like all these different like, but it was very like, there was a lot of grit and grunge and like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And then that evolves, right? And then culturally, like just different things evolve. So it's kind of just cool to see like the evolution over time of just like how things just really evolve and flow.
Yeah,
And,
that's
and
awesome.
now we're going to have AI tools like for
Oh
days.
yeah.
Like, how's that going to affect everything? You know what I mean? That's going to be insane.
Well, I've seen people use it like to create a completely entire song with being content creators. I see other content creators saying, "Well, I'm not going to create music and like publish it or anything like that, but I will use it in the background of like whatever I'm creating and stuff like that." You could say, "Hey, make a hard rock song where um, epic intro for this and this and that." And they, it's just because like for like DRM like royalties and stuff like that, you can't use all the music that you want to use, so you're just gonna have AI come up with something for you, and it's
Right.
like you're not even trying to make money off it. It's just like you're. I mean, it can be monetized, I guess, but I see a lot of people wanting to use AI and to create music for them to create their content. But
Yeah.
speaking of music, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say on that note, that's actually one of the things that I've kind of been like, I think the most curious about, which I'm kind of interested to see, and I think it actually affects like what I'm doing the most is like this fact of like how do you, creators are always going to use whatever tools they can to create everything at a budget, like on their budget, which most people's budgets is super low, right? Except for that like tiny percent of people that like get those deals or whatever, and even sometimes those deals aren't that great. And then the writers and producers, like on both sides, music and film and shows, right, like aren't really credited or taken care of either. But I'm curious as to like what's going to happen, like when people are using creator tools, and then the things that are spit out of those creator tools, or the outputs of those creator tools, if they can't have like true ownership or IP ownership attached to those outputs, like how does that affect, like, because if you can't own the thing you made, what happens then?
Right. I
Like,
think
how
that
can
came
you
up with Mike. I was
monetize it?
speaking with Mike and how the digital age came, and the people how we're talking about, back in the day, Jimi Hendrix, and that, how were they going to know things are going to be digital? Because they were still
Right.
using cassette tapes back then. So they
Exactly.
a lot of them got asked out of royalties because it's digital now. So I could
Exactly.
see exactly what you're saying. Something very similar to that. If you don't own it,
That's right. Well, and I've been on a couple calls where I'm hearing about big catalog purchases, and I think I don't know if there's like a land grab, if you will, but I think to some degree that is what's going to happen. I think you're going to see existing intellectual property that can be tokenized or monetized is going to be bought up, because I do think there's going to be a transition time period where people understand how to own what comes out of these AI tools. And I think a lot of it, yeah, because right, like I mean, it's also a legal thing, right? And that's what we have to focus on a lot of times. We have to focus on like legally what's enforceable with intellectual property, right? I don't know. The thing that, and this has always been also that kind of concept with the kind of the different the Creative Commons licenses that are kind of like open, right? I mean, it's like anybody can use it, anybody can build off of it, and so you can't really make money off of it, which is great. Like you can just create whatever, and you don't have to worry about like royalties or payouts or any of that kind of stuff. But like, how do you make money then? And if you can't make money, like who's going to create and why?
right?
So it's like that's what I think the real question is going to be over the next 5 to 10 years. Like how does that really change ad revenue? How does that change all that? Because if you're creating content based on these outputs that you don't technically own, you really can't monetize them. And if you can't monetize them, I don't know what the point would be of creating. And except for just for fun, which that's cool too. Like if that's all you want. But like a lot of people actually try to make a living with creative efforts. So we'll see how that goes. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting next couple of years. And I think we all have to be just kind of like open and flexible with our thinking about how that could look. I know even like from my standpoint, like we have to be open to that.
I think it's going to be something like you said. Like a lot of people are not really making money, especially startups and stuff like that. I think it's going to take someone to actually start making some money. Someone booms. And then next thing you know, hey, you know what? I created the engine that you use to create that AI music or whatever images, this and that. I think Mid-Journey, what is the other one? I forget.
Yeah, Mid-Journey's good.
It's like
There's Mid-Journey. I mean, Unreal Engine's good.
Leonardo. There we go. Leonardo AI. So if someone says, "Oh, I've been using Leonardo AI this entire time to make all my stuff," and someone hears about that, and you're making millions or something like that, or even hundreds of thousands, they're like, "Hey, a piece of that pie is mine," and then they're gonna go after them, right? So it's like anything that you used that was my stuff is, you got to pay me. So
well, and then you actually have the federal legal laws, like you have your jurisdiction based laws, right? Like what are basically your country's laws around AI usage? right? And I guarantee you, a lot of people aren't aware of that or like thinking of that, because then you basically just created this thing that you don't you really don't own, and there's no enforcement of your ownership. So I mean, you're just subject to all kinds of challenges and issues down the line.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. Actually, there is a lot of sorry, Billy, but there is a lot of
good.
like laws around the internet that people doesn't know, and
Hmm.
in my country, well, I'm currently based in the Philippines, but I'm originally from Jordan. The government tried to educate people, and they push new laws for the people, for the internet, for the people who's using social media application and stuff like this. And a lot of it goes to like you can't take videos of people, and you can't post pictures of people that you don't know, stuff like this. You cannot use AI tools, and there is like a lot of AI guideline in there and stuff like that. So there is a lot of laws towards the internet. There is a lot of laws in using the AI and what capability you can go with, especially like I can't recall all of it, but there is some things that in the AI you're not allowed to use in Jordan as well. I think that was coming to the IT information, something like this. But yeah, I do agree with you. Yeah, some people we need a better maybe education on the internet law and like internet web laws and stuff like this, because I don't think many people know that.
Well, yeah, and then I mean, right now, a lot of the laws around like intellectual property, tokenization, royalty payouts,
Mm,
streaming, all that kind of stuff, like residuals. I mean, all that's just brand new too. So it's like this massive gray space that everybody's essentially trying to figure out. And like even like we've created like DAO trust IP mechanisms, because
mm,
how does a group of people essentially own a singular IP, and how is that IP
yeah.
enforceable? So yeah, no, it's going to be there's a lot of work to do, and it's going to be an evolving thing over the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of all of what we just said, I just wanted to ask. What I was going to say was, how does Ample tie into all this? How are you guys going to tokenize this? How, if it's such a huge gray space and nobody knows what's what, especially like me that's on the consumer side of things, like, and then me being from the United States as well, it's like,
Yeah,
how are you putting this all together when nobody knows what the hell is going on in the first place?
yeah, for sure. So fortunately, we have a really solid team, and we have a great team lawyer who is well versed in all of this stuff. And there are existing cases where you can kind of like reference, that we are referencing, but for the most part, you basically have to kind of gatekeep functionality and access and options to where people live, right? So being in the States, we're incredibly restricted on every single front. There's just no two ways about it, which is really tragic, because I think there's so much opportunity here, but our country has just decided that like we're going to regulate this space like
Everything.
crazy, everything, every single thing. And I mean, truthfully, like I actually think that we're gonna kind of regret that decision, because you have established countries, like the UK, and then look at all the countries in like MENA and APAC and LATAM regions. I mean, they're accepting this, and I mean, I have my reasons for why I think they're accepting this. They're a little bit off topic, but I believe that a lot of countries are really going to be like quick adopters, and there's just going to be you know you, the thing is, right now what's happening is it's taking these micro environments, like nation environments and nation ecosystems and nation verticals and industries, and it's just opening them up to like global expansion instantly, right? So, and I think that it's going to be a rapid evolution, but it's going to take a long time to catch up, because you're talking about international and global laws and structures and frameworks that need to be respected and understood. Not to mention like culturally, like how it's going to affect everybody, right? And how it's going to sort of disrupt like banks and governments and everything. So we're just one small part of that. But yeah, I think basically what we do is how we're approaching it is like, what do we know is possible based on this geographical jurisdiction? and then we're essentially just gatekeeping functionality and options for those people based on where they're kind of like logging in from, and engaging from. That's how we would approach it. It's like, so like if you're from the States, you can't really launch an NFT that you can't launch an NFT project that pays out royalties unless like those people are actually like involved with like the project, right? And like the support of the project. And that doesn't mean like, oh, I hold the NFT and I like tweet about it. That doesn't really count. You know what I mean? Like they'd almost have to be like, like you could launch a film if everyone who held the NFT was like an actor in the film or something like that, right? Or like they did camera work, or they did the editing, or they did, you know what I mean? Because like that's the difference, is that they're not putting money into something and expecting a return or some kind of value without doing work, right? But if they do work and they're actually part of that thing, then they're kind of like they can be classified as an owner of that, entity or whatever it is, from an IP standpoint. And again, anybody that would have any of those launch questions, like we run everything through like a lawyer, because even me, I'm not a lawyer, right? So like the way that I say things may not be exactly proper. But yeah, no, so we're really conscious of like making sure that like you're only releasing and engaging with intellectual property at a token level, um, based on locations and laws, and kind of your regulations, laws and ordinances of your specific jurisdiction.
Yeah, geolocation is going to have a big play in that for sure. But
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
uh,
Sorry to cut you off again, Billy. I am
yeah.
having internet delay latency since I am in the middle of the sea. Anyway, guys, don't forget there is QR codes available for you here to scan. If you look at the top left where Billy is, there is an ample stream QR
Oh, cool.
code. This
Thank
QR code will take you to their Linktree where you can check out their application, and maybe we can dive into your app a little bit, walk us through the Ample app. I think later on in the after Billy finishes the questions, or we can do it now. But yeah, scan the QR code for Ample. This code you will be able to scan it after the live. So if you are watching the show, later on, you will be able to scan the Ample stream. And then we have uh, Kenny and X as well, NDC election, which we will dive into, I think, later a bit. But yeah, go ahead, Billy. Do you want me like to dive into the Ample app first, or you wanna like ask more questions?
Well, I had one more for Ample is I seen last year you guys were I don't think you were announcing, but you were gathering partners, launch partners,
you. Hmm.
and I seen a few of them, and then a few of them now. This was maybe about a year ago. So now I see you guys posting on Twitter a whole lot of announcing these partners. So does that mean sometime around the corner, 2024, we're going to see some type of soft launch, or what are you guys gearing up for? Where are all these announcements coming up for?
Yeah. So that, ideally that would be the goal. We've been doing, yeah, a ton of work. Like so much of the work is like just super annoying and boring, and tedious, right? And detail oriented, and like, you know, it's just, sometimes it's hard to showcase what we're really doing. But yeah, the idea for sure would be to start getting. We're probably going to actually have. We're probably actually going to start trying to get like have a launcher, like a rewards process for like test users like soon, in the next, I would say in the next like month or two maybe. I have to talk to my team before I can like promise that, but yeah, like, so, but for sure, like what we want to do is have kind of like a closed alpha, and like really kind of get people to like basically break it, tell us what they don't like, and really kind of have like a reward set up for that. We have a process in place. We're just kind of like finalizing all those details now, and that'll be something that's pretty exciting. So that will be coming soon, and then yeah, like ideally taking that feedback and iterating. Um, we're also going through like the Near Horizon program right now. So like that's kind of like a 3 month kind of blast, and like really kind of like a pretty big sprint on like user growth, and like really getting all these kind of like pre-launch things worked out. So yeah, ideally soft launch for sure in like 2024, definitely. Like, and preferably like Q1, Q2.
For sure.
We are
Yeah.
talking about yeah, we are talking about a possibility of incentivize for testing the Ample app, right?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, that's great. I think incentivize works, especially if you want to test a project. It does also bring some exposure. But yeah, let's dive into Ample app because I'm very interested. But let me check my share screen here. Okay, so before we start talking, is my can we see the share screen?
Yeah.
I can.
There we
Oh
go.
yeah, there.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, so before we start talking and dive into it, so people who's listening to us now, let's say someone just tuned in and a simplified, you know, very simple way on what is the Ample app? What does it do? Like super simple.
Totally. Yeah, totally. So basically, all that it's like from a general streamer perspective, like they just stream as normal, right? So you'll be able to
Mhm,
stream using crypto or fiat. You won't need a wallet. But basically, the same place that you stream is as a user would be the same place that you could essentially buy NFTs, right? So if that project has a specific NFT, you like that project, you like that artist, you like what they're doing, you can buy into that like same place, right? And then you'll essentially have like all different movies and music and like
mhm,
all, but basically all the things like, and you can have like subscriptions same like you normally do. So from a streaming perspective, it's basically the same streaming experience that a normal user would currently have. What's the main difference is that now on the back end everything's on chain, and then on the back end from a creator side they can now launch NFT projects on the same platform that people stream from. So it's got marketplace functionality but on a streaming platform. And then one step further, they can basically manage all their payments, all their engagement, not just on our platform but other platforms. Because the real value prop, we did a survey with like about 3,000 people, and the real value add will be when we send, like, people upload their content to our platform through our processes. Well, because we're going to have tech specs that they have to meet, we can then send their content to partner streaming platforms, and then we can send their NFTs to a variety of marketplaces as well. So they're not limited to just using our platform. They get all the abilities of our platform, which means they can pitch their project, they can launch their project. Then they get permissionless distribution, right? So they distribute their project, then they can get streaming royalties, they can get NFT sales, etc. But then also those NFTs go to multiple marketplaces, and the content will go to multiple streaming platforms. So, and they don't even have to have a wallet to do any of this. But all their engagement is basically recorded on chain, um, on near native for now. So eventually we want to have EVM compatibility as well, which near also will help with, and we're working on that functionality now, because like we don't want NFTs just to go to near marketplaces. We want to go to other EVM marketplaces and other EVM streaming platforms as well.
That's awesome.
great. I
As
think
soon as
yeah.
it's ready, Zeus and I are interested to test. It looks pretty cool so far.
It's look. So we are basically talking like Netflix leveraging the blockchain technology, basically, right?
Yeah, like imagine if you log on to like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, whatever,
Mhm.
and then at the same in this you could be streaming, and then you're like, oh, they're launching another season. Well, I want to buy an NFT for the second season or whatever, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like you're a fan, then you can get involved, right? And maybe part of that,
yeah.
again, depending on the different geographical locations, like maybe the NFT is like you can actually be a supporting role or something like that, right? So, um,
Yeah, so this is the NFT, right? So basically, they will be watching the movie, show, or music, for example, and then they can check the NFT that is related to it, right? Which
exactly.
is I see here, right?
Yep, exactly. So all of this will
Oh,
live on the same page. Um, and yeah, like right now, like basically right now, what we're going to start doing is actually having like pre launches for these projects.
mhm.
and those will like whichever one's kind of like, we're basically going to have like a pitch portal and pre-launches, so people can just really kind of start using the, because one of the biggest things obviously with creators is finding funding, right? And people have a
Mhm.
variety of different size networks. They live in different jurisdictions, so they have to have like different types of launches, and they'll have different sizes. Like if you have a small community, you can't expect to raise $1 million, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just you just have to be real. But like, could you raise 20,000 or 25,000 and create your short version that then you could actually like start to, you know, get a little more traction, get some community members, people hold those NFTs, and then now you have a small community that starts growing, your project or exposure to your project. So
Like a
yeah,
pilot.
and yeah, exactly. Well, and right now too, just so you know, when you guys are looking around all this, yeah, this is all like super demo version,
Yeah.
but the general layout and the general functionality that I'm describing is what's happening right now. We're basically, we've already integrated like live peer, so the streaming is actually decentralized, if you will.
Mhm.
Um, I use that lightly because you can't really stream on chain, and we'll have to see if we can actually get a quality level that we really want. But so far so good. The live peer team's been great. I met Eric when I was speaking at NFT NYC, so that was, and he's just an awesome human to work with. So we connected, and yeah, so happy to answer
Yeah,
any more
it
questions.
actually looks great. I like the way that it's displaying. It's look pretty good, to be honest, for the first version of it. Question though,
Right.
let's say there is Jump DeFi, for example, launching, and they wanna launch a series of shows or episodes, introduction for the team, for example. They're gonna have their token launch and stuff like this. So can they go to Ample, for example, push their NFT collection, push their token at the same times, including in the video, like in a way of, let's say, educational way, like
Mhm.
okay, learn about the team and meant for yourself, for example, an NFT. Or maybe we can see like a shard dog. For example, watch this episode talking about a Jump DeFi team, what they are building in Web3, stuff like this, and then you can mint yourself a shard dog, you know, and stuff like that. Is this possible, or is gonna be only limited to like creators and content creators?
So I think our main focus. It's interesting that you bring up Jump though, because specifically, like we talk to them all the time, and like I think what we're gonna actually do is we're gonna have a relationship with them, and obviously we'll have to make sure that all of our um, goals are in the right place. I think they are, but I don't want to pretend like I've had the final conversation. We've had the initial conversation, and it seems like we're all on the same page. But I just want to wait, and like eventually, I would like to have the official announcement. But like the NFTs that are created, like we want like the NFTs that are created on our platform to also be like, you could stake them on like Jump DeFi, right? So like,
Yeah, yeah,
same, because like same with like Cafe Cartel and all those, like you can stake them on Jump DeFi, right?
yeah.
So we've been talking to the guys over at Jump like for a while now about this, and that's definitely like one of our goals. I think it's a little too early to determine the true answer to your question, but I think one thing that we're definitely going to do, for each creator, is essentially what we're calling what's called a showcase page. And
Hmm.
the reason that you have a showcase page is because some people may want to use what we're doing as, like, it's very similar. Like, think of Bandcamp. Bandcamp's a perfect example, right? Like Bandcamp,
Yeah,
the
I
band
love
has their
Bandcamp.
page. You can like engage with all their content and everything like right from their page. You don't have to like go through like a marketplace or something, or some thing to find something, like, and they don't have to share like ample. They can actually like, they can actually share like their own specific page, right?
Yeah.
And then from
Choked
that
up
page,
while I'm
it
writing
would be
this.
like,
Didn't think my life would get
do they
so
want to
fucking
have like
trifling.
engagement?
Living like mice and men.
Then yeah,
Hoping this shit gets right again.
what type
Looking
of
like I
engagement?
crawled out of a chimney.
What they want
Balls in my vicinity. Hoping they
was like a watch to earn thing or like that kind of setup. Um, you know, I think we'll see over time like what people really want on those showcase pages. From like on a main DAP, you know, from a main DAP perspective, we're really looking to be more like higher level content. And the other reason is because that can then be licensed by Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Apple, the big ones, right? So we will have certain tech specs that people have to meet. So on the showcase page, there would probably have to be some sort of I don't know. Again, I think we're gonna see like what people really want, and again, remember, like we are in an evolving space, so we're kind of just like lean and iterative. We don't want to like overcommit to any one thing, but it does seem like, you know, distribution to multiple marketplaces, distribution to multiple streaming platforms, and then having the ability to shop your content to bigger networks is what's been really important from a lot of the conversations and research that we've done so far.
Yeah, that's a great. Actually, I was listening to this song. I didn't know actually you guys hear it, but that's pretty fire song. I wanna hear the full version of it. I
Oh,
actually like how he's.
we
Yeah,
have
yeah,
some legit creators for sure.
yeah. It was pretty fire. I mean, I paused it because we couldn't hear you for a bit for a while, but that is fire song. So yeah, man, great thing you guys doing. I'm very interested, to be honest. I know Billy actually is very interested, and I will leave some questions for him. I'm sure he might have some questions, but yeah, I like that. You know, you can mint the NFT. I also like that you guys are thinking of AVM compatibility. I think this is a great way to get more exposures to Ample as well. Um, so I'm looking forward for it, to be honest. I'm really looking forward. I think you guys built a pretty good app. I like the vibe of it. You know, it's like chill.
Exactly.
You know, even the colors is like a chill color. I like the vibe, man. So good job, guys.
That's
Good job.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, it's funny. A lot of thought went into that vibe.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
we
I
still,
dig
you
the
know, we
vibe,
look
man.
at it
I
like
dig it.
we look at it like, oh, we have so many things to update. Oh my gosh, like there's so many things wrong.
Yeah,
So
no, no.
it's
Uh,
nice. It's nice to hear somebody be like, "Oh, I just like the vibe," and I'm like, "Oh, thankfully," because like we put so much time into that.
well,
No,
you know,
it
the
looks
app
good.
at the start. Yeah, it's look pretty good, man. And the
I
app at
like
the
the
start
dark
as
mode.
well.
Dark mode
Yeah.
everywhere.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes, man. Dark mode is
Right,
like for me. I hate light mode. I
right.
really hate light mode. I can't handle it. My eyes hurt when I'm looking at light mode. So dark mode, the colors you guys
I
did
put on my
good. I
glasses.
think you know the
Uh
app
huh.
still like early version, and for what you guys have for the early version, I mean it's pretty impressive. For sure it's gonna improve with time. For sure you guys gonna, you know, add
For sure.
things maybe, or edit things, but so far, man, for like a standard demo version, you guys are outdone it. You know, it's pretty
Yeah,
good, to be honest, and I mean it, because you know I'm like a guy who spend a lot of time on Netflix. I can
for
sit
sure.
like 8 hours, you know, watching Netflix and stuff like this, and Twitch and YouTube, and you know, so this is something that I would actually enjoy doing, because it's like
Right.
Web3 content, and you know, this thing I can spend my
When
time on.
testnet.
Yes, when testnet.
Well, so we were on testnet. Our earlier previous demo was on testnet, but then we switched to basically having we wanted to make sure that like basically the contracts that we wrote were more like NEP 141 based, with an NEP 171 that appeared in your wallet, but that wouldn't be recognizable by multiple marketplaces. So we decided, look, let's not go that path. Let's make sure that like again, we're thinking of like users and value add, like what can we and like getting feedback, right? So like what do people really want? And like we just kind of found that like it seemed like it was more beneficial to like give people um,
Options.
options, like and build bridges versus moats, right? So like once we kind of like took that approach, I mean, it makes our job a little bit harder in terms of like multi-chain or essentially cross-chain, multi-chain distribution and settlements. But, I think there are a lot of solutions that, Near is kind of building right now that will help us kind of grow into the platform that we really want to be eventually. So we just look at everything like baby steps. And so we had to take a step back and then like rebuild contracts that would be easier to implement, kind of this multi-distribution strategy.
Yeah, because if you do
Multi-marketplace
NEP 141, you're going to have to funnel everyone into, NEP 141, and not everyone uses it. It'd be a lot easier if it's like EVM based, but we have.
Yeah, well, NEP 141s, they don't sell them on marketplaces.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into that decision. I can completely understand it. But
Exactly.
Let's move on to the NDC real quick.
Sure.
We've been here for a good 50 minutes, and I don't want to keep you further than an hour. We had a
cool.
quick 5-10 minutes to talk about NDC and stuff like that. So I asked this to everybody. It's like, why are you running, and which, how did you choose which house to go to? Is there any ideation behind that, or you just said, you know what, I just like this one, I would recommend it to do it, because a lot of people said, a few people hit me up and told me I would be perfect for this house, so I'm going to go run for this house because it makes sense for me, because they told me to. But then I looked into it and it does make sense. So how did you get into House of Merit, and why'd you start running?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I actually had a couple people like hit me up and like, hey, are you paying attention to NDC? Like, I think you should at least like try to run or whatever. And then the more research that I did, I kind of got involved with it. And then I started getting involved with the work groups and like really seeing kind of what people were doing. And then I just thought it was like a super cool initiative. Like the idea that, an ecosystem is willing to put like a decent amount of money like towards an idea and an experiment, and like to see like, can decentralized governance even work at an ecosystem level, and then like, let's just try this out. I thought that was like super cool. Like just from it, I think it takes a lot of guts to do something like that, right? Because like you're either going to completely crash and burn, and everybody's going to be like, see, I told you so, right? And you're going to have to take that hit. And as a founder, that's basically what you do anyways. You just take nonstop hits, right? Like rejection
Shot in the
after
dark.
rejection. Yeah, it's like, it's what it is, right? I had to mentally prepare myself for that too. So at this point, it's just funny. But I think like, so that part of it attracted to me. And then, yeah, when people were asking me to like potentially get involved, that's also when I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like if other people are thinking maybe I'd be a good fit, let me check it out. And then the more I learned about it, like I was like, okay, cool, I can actually contribute to this whole experiment. And then, yeah, it was between the House of Merit and Council of Advisors. And I just felt like the House of Merit kind of like aligned with me a little bit more personally, like even the kind of like hero imagery or whatever. I know it sounds so silly, but like I feel like that house is like someone always has to take the hit. Like even when I used to play sports or something, like I used to play lacrosse, and it was almost like if you scored a goal, like you knew you were going to get hit. You know what I mean? Like someone's going to wreck you after you score a goal, for the most part, not always, but like, the defense is always told to like wreck someone after they score, basically. You know what I mean? And I think like as a founder, you're taking hits. I think like, so, and, I kind of like, even like right now, like I train to like actually, when I play sports, to take hits, so I don't break. So I felt like when you propose things, people can judge you, criticize you, all that kind of stuff. And it takes a lot of guts to like put something out there and like let people just rip it apart. And like you could be totally wrong too. Like I could put something out there and like somebody could rip it apart and they're right, and it's like, wow, that could have been better. So I just felt like, but I felt like you had to have a certain measure of guts or whatever you want to call that to like jump into that space. And then I felt like because there was so much focus on like treasury management, which I actually want to make sure is done kind of right, because like that's how this thing exists like long term and becomes sustainable. I felt like everything, just from like startup proposals to like sustainable treasury management, was like a big focus for the House of Merit. So I felt like it was just a good fit, like for me personally, and as well as like what my role would be over the Council of Advisors, where, because I felt like the Council of Advisors was a little bit more like, well, advisory, which I think I could still do, but yeah, I kind of want to be more like more in the mix. I just feel like there's going to be like more back and forth. So that was a longer answer, but that's how I got there.
Well, you answered my next question, but I just wanted to say that, it's kind of like when you're fighting, right? It's the same thing. You're going to get hit. And if you're afraid to get hit, you can't go on offense because you're constantly in defense because the other guy's trying to hit you. So you have to be prepared for that and ready for it. And if you can't deal with the punches, you're probably going to lose, So as a founder, trying to make moves and do your own thing and nobody's guiding you, like maybe you have some advisors and stuff, but even so, like when you have an advisor and say, you need to go do this, you might not agree with it. And you say, hey, I need to do this. And you have to make those decisions and be ready to fail.
So. 100%. And I mean, I feel like at this point, I've been in enough environments and I have taken enough hits to just know that, like, you take the hits and you just try to make sure you can limit the hits to, like, so you can still get back up, right, and keep going. But this is all, and we're not even talking about taking real hits, right? We're just talking about ego hits, essentially, because you're like, you're going to try. That's right. You're gonna try stuff. You're gonna fail, and then like, you just gotta, like, brush it off and not worry about it.
I think anyone who's successful has failed more times than they have been successful. And if you can't understand that, then you probably shouldn't be doing it, or you're not ready for it. Real quick, before it's coming up on the hour now, I don't want to hold you past the hour, but you brought up an interesting fact before we went live, and you said how you found NFTs. So I wanted to ask you that before we end it, and then we're gonna shill your voting. If anyone's live, it's up here. Watching it later. How'd you learn about NFTs? And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, it was fun too. So I played this. So basically, I started learning about like Bitcoin, kind of Ethereum. Like, I didn't really know what was going on, obviously, right? And I was like, man, I just need to kind of like jump in. I started hearing about like NFTs too, but I had no idea what any of this was. And I jumped in and I was like, all right, cool. Well, how can I learn about all of this stuff? And I jumped in and started playing this game called Crypto Space Commander. It was like this online like space game. Basically, you just build like these spaceships and like you dock at stations and build components and then like sell components. Well, the cool thing about this game was, and it was an awesome game, but it didn't. I don't think it's still going anymore. I think the devs gave up or whatever. But it was like, it was a really cool game. Like, and it had so much potential, but they kept like saturating. Like at one point when I started really paying attention was when somebody sold this spaceship in the game for like $50,000 or something like that, and I was like, wait, what? Like, okay. And it was crazy because then, so I started like playing the game and I put like a couple thousand hours, or like, I think it was 1,000 to 2,000 hours. I can't remember what I put into this game, but like, I basically got to the point where I had some ships and then I was selling them on OpenSea. Right. And then I needed ETH. So like, fortunately ETH was super cheap then. So like all the ETH that I bought then just to play the game was like, oh, I didn't know ETH was going to go up this much. But that worked out too. Like, I didn't even understand. I didn't know what I was really doing yet. But like, it was fun. And like, and then once I realized, like, man, like you can essentially assign anything to as an NFT. It's just essentially a wrapper. Yeah. It's just a token wrapper, right? I was like, oh, okay. And then these things engage the way that you tell them to, and that's it. And then it's like a whole public chain that can't be manipulated. And then there's essentially like this marketplace, OpenSea at the time, but like now there are just multiple marketplaces. But I kind of saw that like the marketplace was just basically a website to help the engagement go down, right? And then like you could basically buy and sell anything with anyone at any time, like, and it had this whole on chain thing. And then that's when I really started going down the rabbit hole of like smart contracts and tokens. And that's when I really kind of came up with like, oh, so if you can own a spaceship, like why can't you own intellectual property or real estate or like any of these things, right? And then that's when the concept of like IP and real world assets being tokenized and having this like entire global market, of liquidity essentially for these things kind of came to my mind. And then that's when it really sent me down the rabbit hole of like, man, all the problems that we could solve. And then I just applied it to the vertical that I understood and the problems that I had seen for the last, 15 years of professional production experience. And here we are.
Now we have ample.
And now
That's
we have
awesome.
ample. Exactly, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, the same thing. I'm just a consumer, and I'm playing video games my entire life. I'm in my 30s now, and I think that if you can play some games, even though you're not competitive like myself, that's more of Seuss. He's a little sweaty gamer there, but he
Right.
could probably actually win some money other than me. But just for like participating and being active and stuff like that, and doing test net, and you can get rewards and
Yes.
doing the minimum of what they ask you to do, you can make $5 or $10 a week easily, and that's what I did with Gods Unchained. It's much like Hearthstone or something like that's a card game,
Sure. Well,
And
the interesting thing is once you also go global, right? Like, I mean, we like here in the States, like we don't think of $5, $10 as anything, but you go outside of the country and you go
vaccine.
global, right? Exactly. Like, right. Like you start realizing like, well, rent can be covered with $50 a month in some places. I mean, I've been there. Like, I know, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think, once you start understanding that we're in a global market now and everything Web3 is global, like in gaming and like, and now you have like ownership of your data and ownership of all your engagements, right? And your collaborations. And that can, it basically, it happens on chain and that can't be manipulated. Well, now you have this whole authentication layer, to all your engagement. And you do actually start seeing value from just all your engagements, which you should. I mean, like people make money off your data all day long.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you get a cut of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think about it, you get paid for your time. You're sitting here playing this game, and then it's like the best marketing is word of mouth. So if you make something good and I'm playing it, I'm gonna go tell Suze, hey, come play this game with me. It's really fun.
That's right.
And we can probably make a couple bucks, And
Right.
going back to globally, Seuss is from the Philippines. He's probably super tired right now. It's 1 a.m. maybe, but
Thank you,
Axie
Seuss.
was super huge. And if you're making $300 or $400
No worries, man.
a month off of this, you're living off of this video game, and it's just interesting to see, how much this can boom. Like if how much of the percentage of the world owns crypto? Didn't they say it's like less than 10%?
Yeah, it's super small right now. Right.
So you
Exactly.
think about it, if people are making a living off of this and then it booms like worldwide, it has a ton of potential. And I didn't even know that before I got into it, but now I know a little bit more about it, and I'm just like, wow, this is awesome.
But wait, a bit of touch on this. To be honest, like in the Philippines back in Axie Infinity days when it's boomed, I think that was before the COVID or after the COVID, I can't remember.
Before, yeah.
Inflation was like way too low compared to what it is now in Philippines. Philippines now it's pretty expensive to be honest, to the point that I was thinking, well, maybe I should go back to my country because to the point that if I'm buying a fruit, for example, is sold by piece, and believe it or not, the one piece of an apple it cost me half a dollar, where it used to cost me a kilo used to cost me around half a dollar back in like 2017
Wow.
in Philippines. So
That's crazy.
inflation become really crazy expensive in the Philippines, but I do agree in some parts of areas, for some people, they could manage living off couple, maybe an 800 a month paying their house and expenses, but that also goes back to what lifestyle you're adapting in those countries. So for example, a
Exactly.
Filipino citizen who's living in the Philippines, for example, for like his whole life, would be able to adapt to a six, 700, $800 a month. Where, for example, you come to Philippines, you won't even be enough for your groceries. So lifestyles change, but I do agree there's a lot of countries that can live massively with this, where the inflation is still pretty low. And I'm
Yeah,
talking about countries like, for example, I think Pakistan, Afghanistan, India. These countries, the s- the the living cost is really really low, as far as I understand. But inflation hit really hard, and
right.
yeah, a
Well,
lot of people
that's
actually
gonna be
can.
another thing, yeah, for sure. That
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
that changes and evolves like over the next couple of years, especially as like global currency. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's gonna be like I think we're gonna just see so many evolutions. It's gonna be pretty nuts. Pretty stoked. Like we're gonna rattle some things. I think.
It's definitely going to be interesting, but we are past the hour now. I don't want to keep you too long, Kenny. I know you got things to do. So,
It's
really
cool.
quickly, I think it's already there. Yes, vote for Kenny is right here. If I can figure out where I'm at. Vote for Kenny. Scan this QR code. I'll take you straight to his House of Merit page. If you
Thanks,
want
y'all.
to follow him on Twitter, here's his Twitter link right there. Scan that QR code, take you to his Twitter. Follow him.
Mhm.
Here's Ample Stream's link tree, and I
Linktree, yes.
got a bigger one right here for you. We'll cover up Sue's. Bam.
Keep your eyes on Ample, guys. Keep your eyes in there.
It's very
Yeah,
interesting. I'm very
thank
Yeah.
y'all
interested to see when they launch and what they're gonna do. But
for sure. Yeah, I'm excited for that day too. So much work.
yeah, that's all. I mean, I could probably sit here and talk to you for another hour, but I don't want to keep you too
Likewise,
long.
I love all like I like all the little tangents too. I like everything that we're doing, so I would love to stay longer for sure. But yeah, no, I totally appreciate all of this, guys. It was a real pleasure for sure.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I think you're an interesting person, and I think we could talk about a bunch of other stuff other than NDC. And it
For
was much
sure.
more fun than the NDC for sure. Because man, me and Sue's been talking about it for the past 2 3 weeks. So,
Oh yeah.
Sue's, do you have anything to say? You guys have any closing statements before we wrap it
No,
up?
just I think we have like around 1 day or 2 day, depends on your time zone, to vote for
Yep.
the NDC.
Right.
So if you guys did not vote yet, make sure to secure your votes and make sure to vote for the people you want at once. You cannot go back and vote for multiple people. Kenny should be in your list as well. Shout out to all other OGs who
For
is
sure.
running in the
A
NDC
lot of
and
great
deserve a
people for
spot.
sure.
Yes, we need builders. We need a lot of people in there. But let's see how V1 goes. I'm very optimistic on V2. V1, I have my doubt. Okay, we'll see. We'll see how things go. I
Yeah,
have
no,
We'll
we
see
need to
hope.
what
make it
Kenny
to the
does.
V1 first. I know, right?
Yeah, yeah. So good luck, Kenny. I hope you luck in a clutch votes at the end. Thank you so much for joining the Bonnier podcast. We really appreciate it. It was a fun podcast with you as well, and very informative one.
Yeah. Thank y'all. I really appreciate everything. Have a good one.
Later, guys. Thanks for joining.